He built his life on that ranch, land he poured sweat and hope into. But one morning, a fence cut across his only entrance, locking him out of the very property he owned. No warning, no permission, just control. The HOA thought they had boxed him in, stripped him of freedom, and humiliated him before the whole community. What they didn't know was that the man they were trying to break was already planning something bold. And when the truth came out, no one could believe what he had done. Marcus was a man of the land. His ranch wasn't grand, but it was his pride, built with years of hard work and quiet determination. Each morning, he rose with the sun, tending to his animals and walking the soil that gave him peace. Out there, surrounded by open fields, he felt free, away from the prejudice that too often followed him in town. But freedom has a way of making others uncomfortable. His independence, his success, even his presence on that land, rubbed some the wrong way. The HOA had always been a nuisance. Petty fines, meaningless letters, constant reminders of rules that never seemed to apply to anyone else. Marcus brushed it off, telling himself it wasn't worth the fight. Still, whispers began to spread. Eyes lingered too long at community meetings. Rules were suddenly enforced with a precision that felt less like order and more like targeting. Behind closed doors, the HOA was plotting something bold, something that would challenge not just his patience, but his very right to live freely on his own land. The first sign came quietly. Surveyors appeared near his property line, avoiding his questions with vague answers. Days later, the pounding of hammers filled the air. A fence rose across the only road leading into his ranch. Marcus was stunned. His deed was clear, his ownership unquestionable. Yet when he approached the HOA, they dismissed him with rehearsed lines about community safety and bylaws. The truth was clear: they weren't protecting anyone. They were cutting him off. Suddenly, his daily routine turned into an exhausting battle. To reach his front gate, Marcus was forced to take long, winding detours. His neighbors watched in silence. Some offered pitying glances, while others smirked. The message was obvious. This wasn't his place anymore. The harassment escalated. Letters filled his mailbox. Complaints about the size of his barn, the paint on his fence, even the way he parked his tractor. Rules that had never mattered were now serious violations. Every page, every notice, felt less like governance and more like punishment. But Marcus didn't crumble. Instead, he studied. He read every bylaw, every regulation the HOA had weaponized against him. And in the fine print, buried beneath their arrogance, he found cracks, oversights, forgotten clauses, loopholes. The same papers they used to humiliate him would soon become the very weapon he needed to turn the tables. The HOA meeting that evening began as usual. Smug voices reciting rules, threats of fines, reminders that Marcus was non-compliant. He let them talk. He let them enjoy their control one last time. Then, calmly, he placed a folder on the table. Inside were papers signed, sealed, and undeniable. The very strip of land the HOA had fenced, the gate they used to control him, he now owned it outright. Purchased legally, filed with the county, irrevocable. The room fell silent. Faces turned pale. The key to the locked gate? The road they depended on to access their own properties. In their arrogance, the HOA had overlooked the simplest truth. Ownership is power. They thought they had trapped him, but now every one of them was trapped instead. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't gloat. He simply gathered his papers, slipped the key into his pocket, and walked out. The same neighbors who once watched him struggle now watched in stunned silence, realizing the man they had tried to cage had just taken control of the cage itself. News of the meeting spread quickly. For the first time, people who had mocked Marcus now depended on him. Each time they passed through that gate, they were reminded of the man they tried to humiliate and the power he now held. For Marcus, the victory was never about revenge. It wasn't even about the gate. It was about dignity, about proving that no fence, no rule, no prejudice could take away what he had built. Still, the victory carried a heavy truth. Marcus knew his battle was just one story in a long chain of injustices. Across communities, People continued to face fences, some built of wood and metal, others built of laws, bias, and silent stares. His triumph was personal, but it was also a reflection of a deeper fight that stretched far beyond his ranch. That night, as he locked the gate with his own hand, the sound wasn't just closure, it was defiance. A declaration that he would never again be caged by anyone's prejudice or power. And it left one question echoing through the town. How many more fences must be built and broken before freedom is no longer something to fight for, but something everyone can truly live?